Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's presentation, Exploring Wild India, Tigers, Rhinos, Elephants, and More, is brought to you by NatHab Expedition Leader Aditya Panda. A little bit more about our presenter. Aditya is an award-winning naturalist, wildlife conservationist, and photographer from Odisha, India, whose passion for nature was sparked by his grandfather's jungle tales. With more than 2 decades of experience, he's dedicated his career to protecting tiger and elephant habitats while serving as honorary wildlife warden of Satkosia Tiger Reserve and working closely with government officials and local communities. As a NatHab expedition leader and accomplished wildlife photographer, Aditya brings both deep conservation expertise and a storyteller's gift for helping guests discover the incredible challenges and wonders of India's wildest places. Thank you for being here today, Aditya. Over to you.
Thank you, Brooke, and hello to our wonderful audience. I hope you all had a lovely Halloween weekend and are all looking forward to safari season here in India. I assume a lot of you must be traveling on the Grand India Wildlife Adventure, which is the trip that we're going to be talking about today. And you'll be traveling this season. So one thing I would request everybody to do before I get started with this webinar is to find a notebook and a pen and keep them handy because there are lots of notes that you'll be taking. Right. So before I get started with today's webinar, Brooke, of course, did a fantastic job of introducing me, but I would like to add that I've been leading NatHab expeditions since 2016. And, I've been leading the Grand India Wildlife Adventure right from the beginning of my career in NatHab. I also lead India Tiger Quest and the India Tiger Safari photo expedition. So without further ado, if you found your notepads and pens, today's webinar is what we call a Know Before You Go webinar. And it's a Know Before You Go for the Grand India Wildlife Adventure. The monsoons have finally completely withdrawn from the Indian subcontinent and autumn is setting in. There is a nip in the air. It's nice and crisp. And, I just love this time of the year before winter begins to set in. It really triggers triggers wanderlust in me. It's the time of the year that has traditionally marked the beginning of wildlife season, of safari season. The rains have receded, the jungles are beginning to get dry and become more accessible, and winter migrant birds will start coming in very quickly if they already haven't. And it's just always been the beginning of the wildlife season in this country. So it's a lovely time of the year for us, and also the beginning of the NatHab season for 2025-26. And safari season for NatHab begins with the Grand India Wildlife Adventure, and our first trips will begin departing in December. And as a lot of you must be knowing, the Grand India Wildlife Adventure operates all the way until the end of April and sometimes into May. Now, of all the trips I lead in India, I shall have absolutely no qualms about claiming that this is my favorite trip. And the reason behind that is the phenomenal amount of diversity, of wildlife diversity and landscape diversity that this trip allows one to experience in the span of 2 weeks. We visit 3 fantastic national parks and tiger reserves in India, 2 in central India, Bandhavgarh and Kanha, and a 3rd in the northeast of the country called Kaziranga. There'll be very few itineraries that can pack in this much wildlife diversity and these many wildlife viewing opportunities into 1 2-week trip. And of course, it's a fantastic trip to spot megafauna like tigers, rhinos, elephants, gaur, wild buffalo, leopards, sloth bear, wild dogs. But it also allows you to really experience India in a way that most tourist brochures will not let you. Most visitors to India usually limit themselves to one region or one part of India, typically the so-called Golden Triangle that covers Delhi, Agra, and Jaipur in the northern part of the country. But it is on a trip like this that you realize how vast and how diverse a country like India can be, and how different really every region of India is from the other. And that's something that this trip really lets us experience, not only in terms of wildlife, but also in terms of landscape and people and culture and food and whatnot. Um, it's also a fantastic trip for photography. It offers fantastic wildlife photography and landscape photography and people photography opportunities. And also, of course, each one of these destinations is an absolute trophy of conservation. You know, these places will tell you what it takes to conserve wildlife in a country like India. And these are all shining examples of the success of conservation measures. So we will get to learn and experience a lot of that as we explore these parks for wildlife. And of course, this is the Grand India Wildlife Adventure is one of the most deep experiences of the realm of the tiger that you can ever get to enjoy. So in that sense as well, this trip is an absolute holistic experience of the tiger's realm. We travel almost across a third of the country, a third of the Indian subcontinent in achieving this expedition. And we actually, if you put together flying, driving, your time in a safari jeep, we actually cover about 3,500 miles on this trip. So that's a lot of distance to cover in these 2 weeks that this trip, that this expedition spans across. We begin our trip at Delhi and then fly to a city called Jabalpur, right in the center of India. From where we drive 3 hours to our first national park called Bandhavgarh. We spend 3 nights there and then drive about 5 hours to our next national park called the Kanha National Park and Tiger Reserve, where we spend 4 nights. And then we drive 4 hours to a city called Raipur, from where we fly to a city called Kolkata, earlier called Calcutta. And we spend a night at Calcutta just so that we can get off one plane and then catch the next one the next morning, and then fly far into the east into a city called Jorhat. From Jorhat, we drive about 3 hours to our final national park, Kaziranga. At Kaziranga, we spend another 3 nights exploring the park for rhinos and elephants and wild buffalo and other wildlife. And then we drive 5 hours to a city called Guwahati and then fly all the way back to Delhi. It's the longest flight of the trip. And it's a rather scenic flight, especially if the skies happen to be clear, because we'll be flying all along the edges, all along the borders of Bhutan and Nepal, and people sitting on the right-hand side of the aircraft, and we make sure all of you are seated on the right-hand side of the aircraft, have a fantastic view of the Himalayan ranges, particularly of peaks like Kanchenjunga. We do fly past Everest, but don't ask me to point it out, because it's very difficult to tell unless you have an app on your phone that points out the mountains for you. So that's the expedition map in a nutshell. And what I'm going to do next is to go through the itinerary day by day, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritties of the trip, of things that you need to keep in mind and points that you need to note. And we'll talk a little about the wildlife that we can expect to see on a trip like this. So day 0 is the day you arrive at Delhi. We always recommend that you try and arrive at least a day before the trip begins, because it's a long flight from the US to Delhi, and it's halfway across the planet. So that can give you a pretty bad jet lag. So it always helps to arrive at least a day early, if not more, and then just sleep out your jet lag and be in India time by the time the trip actually begins. So you'll be assisted by our staff at the airport when you arrive. They'll get you to the Taj Mahal Hotel in the heart of Delhi. It is situated in the in what we call Lutyens Delhi, the nice part of Delhi where all the embassies and the government buildings are, and that's a nice place to stay at. Very, very comfortable, very, very luxurious 5-star hotel, fantastic food and lovely service by the staff. So you arrive at this hotel and you rest as you wait for meeting the rest of the group and your expedition leader on day 1. So on day 1, we typically meet at about 1 p.m. So you can have the morning at ease. You can have breakfast when you want. You can have a lie-in and feel rested and fresh and ready before we start gradually exploring. And we meet at about 1 o'clock, get to know each other, and then go on a short tour of the city of Delhi, just to give you a glimpse of life in India and introduce you to the way of life in India. We shall tour not only parts of what is called New Delhi, which is the modern capital of India that was built in 1930, but we will also explore the old part of Delhi, which has been, practically unchanged, except for the arrival of electricity and motor vehicles and cellular service since almost the medieval period. So very, very interesting part of Delhi with lots of history, lots of beautiful monuments, and very, very fascinating. So we will tour Old Delhi and New Delhi. In Old Delhi, we visit the mosque that you see in this painting, in fact, called the Jama Masjid, which is sort of at the center of Old Delhi. And we then go explore the bylanes in tricycle rickshaws, and we explore local markets, spice markets, and then, time permitting, we will come back into New Delhi and explore some monuments there, and either visit a Sikh temple or visit Mahatma Gandhi's memorial. All of that is very flexible and dependent on how your day is going and how your time is being managed. So after this sort of glimpse into life in India, we come back to our hotel by about 5 o'clock or so, and then we get some time to go back to our rooms and get refreshed. And in the evening, your expedition leader is going to host you for dinner and brief you about the trip and present you with your pre-trip orientation, and then you get to know your group and your expedition leader and the trip well, and get ready for getting on safari the next day. The next day is your first really early start of the trip. You start well before sunrise, and you know you are driven down to the airport, from where you take a morning flight, an early morning flight, to a city called Jabalpur. And that flight takes about 1.5 to 2 hours. And once you land at Jabalpur, which is usually around 9:30, a lot depends on fog and smog at Delhi. So flights do get delayed, especially in December and January. But yeah, assuming your flight is on time, you land at Jabalpur around 9ish, 9:30ish, and you would have carried packed breakfast with you from the Taj Hotel at Delhi, and then you drive 3 hours to Bandhavgarh National Park, where we shall then arrive at a lodge where we shall be camping at in time for lunch. And we have lunch. We get briefed about the game drive and shown to our rooms, and we check in and dump our luggage, change into our safari gear, and go on our first game drive of the trip on the afternoon of day 2. Days 3 and 4 are spent going on morning and afternoon game drives in the Bandhavgarh National Park and Tiger Reserve. So morning drives begin typically at sunrise and go on until about 11:30. So you're back at camp close to noon, and then you have time for a short rest or a nap, and then or maybe just walk around the property, walk around the grounds, do a little bit of birding in camp, and get some exercise. And then you have lunch and get back in the safari jeep for your afternoon game drive, which ends at sunset. And then you come back and have dinner and get to bed, and then start the next day all over again. Bandhavgarh is in the central part of India, and it is a really rich tiger habitat. Very good density of tigers there. It is one of the parks that is key on the list of everyone who is serious about sighting tigers in the wild. Besides tigers, of course, we also get leopards and wild dogs and sloth bear and gaur and other animals, including, in fact, Asiatic elephants, wild elephants that have made Bandhavgarh their home once again, only in the last few years. They were locally extinct for almost a century, and now they have come back on their own and recolonized this park. So there are good chances of seeing wild elephants at Bandhavgarh as well, besides, of course, tigers. On day 5, we start with an early breakfast at Bandhavgarh, and then we drive for 5 hours through very, very beautiful central Indian countryside to Kanha National Park, the park where we shall be spending the longest amount of time. We arrive in time for lunch at Kanha at the Singinawa Jungle Lodge, which I will show you later. And after we have lunch, we check in, and we can actually take a break that afternoon. You can either choose to rest in your room, or the camp naturalists will be happy to show you around the grounds. It's a very large camp with sprawling grounds adjoining the park. All the camps, in fact, that we stay at adjoin the parks and add to their acreage. So there is literally very little difference between the actual grounds of the camps and the park. So it is very common to watch wildlife even inside the campgrounds. So you can spend that afternoon stretching your legs and walking around camp a bit. And then we have an early dinner that evening, because we need to go on a night safari. It's going to be the only night game drive of the trip, and it gives us a fantastic opportunity to experience and explore the jungle after the sun has set. And it's a totally different world from what it feels and looks like in the day. You get to see species such as, civets and owls and flying squirrels and things like that that you would typically not see by daylight. And of course, if you're really lucky on a night game drive, you might even see a big cat. And there's nothing quite like seeing the eyes of a tiger or a leopard reflect the headlights of your Jeep, in absolute darkness. So that's something that does happen, but doesn't happen as frequently as we would like it to. So after our night safari, which fortunately is, the night safari zone of Kanha is just a 4 or 5 minute drive from our camp. So it's fairly close, and we can come back in time for our usual bedtime, so that the next morning we can get back into the routine of morning and afternoon game drives. So days 6, 7, and 8 will be spent doing that. We will have morning and afternoon game drives at Kanha every one of those days. In central India, the parks are shut on Wednesday afternoons. And invariably, we have a Wednesday every now and then, during our stay at Kanha. So that gives us the opportunity to spend an afternoon going on a walking safari or a village visit, which I'll talk about soon. But at Kanha, we have plenty of time to go on regular game drives and explore the different zones of the park. We will be focusing most of our attention to the near zone from the camp that we stay at, a zone called the Mukhi zone, which suits us just fine because Mukhi tends to have the best tiger sightings in Kanha. And, our time at Kanha, of course, is going to be spent watching a lot of other wildlife like the swamp deer and leopards and wild dogs, and looking for all of those things. But also, like at Bandhavgarh, at Kanha, we will be focusing a lot of our attention on to finding tigers, because Kanha and Bandhavgarh give us our best chances of seeing tigers while on this trip. So yes, morning and afternoon game drives exploring the beautiful meadows and rather grand sal forests of Kanha. And on the either on the 8th or 9th day, it all depends on when you happen to have a Wednesday or when your expedition leader sees fit to do. But one of the on the 8th and 9th day, we will be going on a walking safari and a village visit. They could happen, either in the afternoon of the 8th day or the morning of the 9th day. That's entirely up to your group and your expedition leader. And also, it depends a lot on what's going on in the afternoon safari, in the walking safari zone of the park. Because sometimes we have information about specific wildlife, which might make us take a call as to whether it will be better to go on a walk in the afternoon of the 8th day or go on a walk on the morning of the 9th day. But yeah, in either case, you get to experience a walking safari in the buffer zone of the park, right adjoining the core area, in an area frequented by tigers and other large wildlife. And a walking safari absolutely opens up a different world for you from what you experience in a Jeep. Because when you're confined to a Jeep, there are a lot of things a lot of details that you miss that you now have a chance on the walking safari to experience, such as, the scrape marks of a tiger that had just sprayed this rock, maybe half an hour before we arrived there in this picture, or tracks and signs and lesser fauna and insects and carnivorous plants and all kinds of things that one would tend to miss out on a driving safari. And also, a walking safari gives us some much needed exercise after spending all that time driving around in jeeps and all that amazing food that the camps feed us. So on the walking safari, we walk mostly along a river called the Banjar, which marks the southern boundary of the Kanha Tiger Reserve. And yeah, we have excellent birding while doing it, and sometimes we do get to see larger fauna too. But we will have not only your expedition leader, but also a walking safari, a trails guide, and the camp naturalists from our camp assisting us. And I would rate the hike as easy. It's mostly level ground and well-marked trail and fairly easy hike. So it's probably 2 or 3 miles at most, but it takes us 2 hours, sometimes more, to complete it. And because we are so busy stopping and looking at things. And of course, it is understood that people in the group might have different physical abilities. But since we have so many staff members, so many field staff members with us on this walking safari, it's all right if the group splits up into, different speeds of hiking. At Kanha, we will also take time out to visit a village of the Bega community. The Bega are one of the oldest indigenous tribes that inhabit central India, and their ways, their lifestyle hasn't changed much at all over the years. Of course, they are integrated with the modern world, and they do have electricity and they do carry cell phones, but their way of life within their community is still deeply rooted and deeply in touch with their traditions. So it's always a very interesting, a very enlightening experience to visit a Bega village and see the way of life there. And I know this question comes up all the time because people sometimes when they travel in other parts of the world, they have been exposed to a sort of commercialized cultural experience, commercialized village visit kind of experience, and that's usually left a negative taste in many people's minds. And I'm frequently asked if it's the same in this village visit, and I can absolutely assure you that it's nothing like that. There are staff members in the camp that hail from this village, that hail from this community. They work at our camp, and we are absolutely welcome to visit very informally and just wander about, see what they grow, see what their houses are built like, because their architecture is quite interesting. They build with mud and mud bricks, and houses plastered with cow dung and painted with lime. And these houses just easily last for over a century. And everything is handmade, and everything that we talk about in today's day and age about making our lifestyle more sustainable, the Begas already practice that, and they have been doing that for centuries. So it's a really interesting experience to witness that firsthand and to learn directly from them. On day 9, which is going to be our last day at Kanha, we will drive to Raipur, which will be a 4-hour drive. And at Raipur airport, we will board a flight which usually is a 4 p.m. flight to Kolkata. And it's going to be a 90-minute flight. And, we arrive at Kolkata just after it's gotten dark. And that's going to be a very long travel day for us. In fact, that day and the day after that day are the longest travel days for us. So at Calcutta, we arrive and check into a hotel that is very close to the airport. It's maybe a 15-minute drive at most. And it's a Taj hotel again, just like the one at Delhi. So really comfortable, really nice five-star hotel. We get into the hotel, have dinner first thing, and then go to our rooms and get a well-deserved night's rest. The next morning, fortunately, we don't have to start really early. We can lie in, we can have breakfast at a very comfortable 8 o'clock. And then at around 9:30 or so, we head back again to the airport to catch our next flight to Jorhat, from where we drive to Kaziranga. Now we arrive at Jorhat around lunchtime again. Um, and, typically what we do at Jorhat, Jorhat is in a state called Assam, which is in the northeast of India. And the northeast of India is a totally different world from what we call subcontinental or mainland India. It's absolutely different geographically and culturally. Northeast India, in fact, is closer to Southeast Asia than it is to South Asia. This region of the country is bordered by countries like Myanmar, like China, Bhutan, and Nepal, and Bangladesh. So, the landscape, the culture, the people, the language, everything is very, very different from what we'll have experienced in northern and central India. And Assam, of course, for people who don't even know the name of the state, they'll all still know that Assam is associated with tea. It is one of the largest tea growing regions in the world. And Jorhat in particular is sort of a tea capital because a lot of this town is built around the tea growing business. So when we land at Jorhat, typically we drive from the airport, again about 15 minutes or 20 minutes, to a beautiful tea estate, which is more than 100 years old. And the family that owns the estate actually host us for lunch and even give us a little tea talk. But we have started avoiding doing that in our earlier trips, say the trips that operate in December and January, and sometimes even into February. We try and avoid going to the tea estate for the simple reason that India, for some strange reason, has only one time zone, and in a sense, we should actually be having two, if not three, because it's such a wide country. There's probably a 2 hour, 2.5 hour difference between Assam and Mumbai. But for whatever reason, we have only one time zone that tries and average all this out, which doesn't really work. And in Assam, it gets dark by 4:30 or even earlier in the months of December and January. So what we do is to avoid driving in the dark, we actually have a picnic lunch brought in from the tea estate to a rendezvous spot on the highway where we, park our cars at a pleasant spot and have our lunch, and then continue our drive to Kaziranga and try and minimize night driving. Later in the season, from February onwards, we can actually, as the sun sets later, we can actually go to the tea estate and have a proper sit-down lunch and walk around the grounds and get a little tea talk. But yeah, uh, nevertheless, after lunch at Jorhat, either in a tea estate or not, we drive on to Kaziranga, which from Jorhat will take under 3 hours. And we arrive at the Diflu River Lodge, which is going to be our camp for the duration of the trip. And that evening, we don't have any wildlife activities. We check into the camp, and after 2 hectic days of travel, we enjoy a nice dinner and go to our cottages and fall asleep. The next morning begins our Kaziranga adventure. We go on 3 game drives, one in the morning of day 11, one in the afternoon of day 11, and one on the morning of day 12 at Kaziranga, and explore 3 different zones of the park: the central zone, the western zone, and the far western zone, usually. Looking for all the amazing creatures that Kaziranga has. It's a phenomenal park in that it has one of the highest densities and highest diversities of megafauna anywhere on the planet, and the only part of the world that could be compared to Kaziranga in terms of mammal diversity and density are probably the plains of East Africa. Yeah, it is a tremendous amount of diversity and density for a park the size of Kaziranga. And it's a very different landscape from the deciduous forests and the grasslands of central India. Kaziranga is almost entirely located in the floodplains of a massive river called the Brahmaputra that originates in Tibet. And the landscape of Kaziranga is primarily swamp, tall grasslands, and patches of evergreen forest. And it is absolutely packed with wildlife. It's got rhinos. It's in fact got the largest population of greater one-horned rhinoceros in the world. It's got Asiatic elephant, again the highest density of Asiatic elephant in the world, highest density of Asiatic wild buffalo in the world, highest density of eastern swamp deer in the world, highest density of hog deer in the world, and one of the highest densities of tigers in the world. But the reason I mentioned that Kanha and Bandhavgarh will be the parks that we'll be focusing most on tigers on, because at Kaziranga, the lay of the land is such and the height of the grass is such that despite having one of the highest tiger densities, it is not particularly suitable for easy tiger viewing, which doesn't mean that we don't see tigers there. We do see tigers there, but not very often. Kaziranga also has about half as many birds as are found in all of India. So excellent bird watching. And it is, in general, a park where, as we arrive, the pace of our trip will slow down, and we will shift from actively tracking and looking for tigers like we did in central India to being a little more passive and letting the wildlife actually come to us as we wait and watch and slowly soak things in. So it will mark a change of pace and a change of approach as our safari progresses. On day 12, which is our third day at Kaziranga, in the afternoon, we shall skip the game drive and go instead down to the river that is the mother of this park in more ways than one, the Brahmaputra. The Brahmaputra is a very, very interesting river that, as I said, originates in Tibet. And it flows through the Tibetan plateau, forming some very deep, some very impressive gorges. before abruptly turning south and entering northeastern India, flowing through Assam and into Bangladesh, where it then meets the Ganges, the Ganga, which is India's largest river, um, at the Sundarbans Delta, where both these rivers then flow into the Bay of Bengal. Um, so the Brahmaputra is a very, very interesting river, and it is worth going down a small cruise in a comfortable little boat that our lodge owns. And as we cruise down the river, we are actually cruising past the park's boundary, so we can actually see elephants sometime, buffalo, rhino, and other wildlife from the boat in the park. But our real purpose for coming down to the river is to look for the Gangetic river dolphin, or the South Asian river dolphin, which is one of the world's only two surviving species of freshwater dolphin. So after we do that, we head back to camp, and then on day 13, our safari, the wildlife part of our safari, our main expedition, finally draws to a close. We drive from Kaziranga after breakfast in the morning to Guwahati. It is a 4-hour drive, and from Guwahati we fly back to Delhi, where the group will split. Those of you who are only doing the main expedition are going to be driven to your airport hotel, from where you will be then taken to the airport in time for your flight home. While those of you staying back and continuing on the extension to Agra are going to go back to the Taj Mahal Hotel in Delhi with your expedition leader and spend the night there. And then the next morning, which is day 14 of the trip and day 1 of the extension, we again have an easy morning, have breakfast, and then drive to Agra, where we want to see this famous white building called the Taj Mahal. The drive to Agra is a very comfortable drive, and along an expressway it takes about 3 hours. Very, very flat, very, very comfortable road. We again arrive at Agra just in time for lunch. We check into our hotel, we go to our rooms, take a little bit of rest after lunch, and then around 4 o'clock or so, our Agra guide is going to join us and talk to us about the monuments and the history of Agra, and take us first to the Fort of Agra, which is a rather interesting place to visit and a very, very impressive fort to see. We shall tour the Fort of Agra that afternoon, and then just before sunset, we will go to a place called Mehtab Bagh, where we will watch the Taj Mahal first from a distance in the setting sun. We have a panoramic view of the Taj Mahal from that area, and we will enjoy it and appreciate it in the light of the setting sun, and then come back to the hotel for dinner and bed, and then really early the next morning, well before the sun rises, we shall go right back to the Taj Mahal and try and be first in line to enter the monument and see it in the beautiful changing light of sunrise. And the marble, the white marble, actually reflects the colors of the rising sun. So it's mesmerizing to see it at that time of the morning. Another good thing about being there early in the morning is that the crowds haven't arrived yet. So only those who are very serious about seeing and appreciating the monument in that kind of light will be the ones who are there. And we will also go into the monument and, before the crowds come in, we will actually go into the monument and see the tombstones of the emperor and empress that this monument is an ode to. And that was how day 15 will begin. And then we will come back to our hotel at Agra to have breakfast and then drive back to Delhi, where we will all be driven to the airport hotel that we'll be using before we are taken to the airport for our flights home. So that was the itinerary, briefly. And this is what the weather is like through the year in all the different locations that I spoke about. All of these charts that you see are taken from the pre-departure briefing booklet that you're given. I would highly recommend that you go through the pre-departure briefing booklet in detail. It will prepare you very well for the trip and avoid unpleasant surprises, and make things really smooth, especially in places like airports, etc., which is something that I'm going to talk to you about. But yes, in general, in the months of December through March, it is going to be very cold. And from March through April and May, it begins to get progressively warmer. In December and January and February, the mornings can actually be freezing. The temperatures go down to freezing sometimes. Pretty often, in fact, we have about 2 weeks of frost at places like Kana and Bandhavgarh every winter. While that might not sound like a lot to those of you who live in the cooler parts of the United States, when you're out in an open Jeep, with no cover, no heating, the wind chill really makes you feel the cold. And in December, January, and February, the nights and early mornings are freezing cold. And in the daytime, even in the middle of the day, if you are in the shade, if you're not actually right out in the sun, you will still feel cold. So I'll come to clothing advice soon, but just keep this in mind. December, January, and February are going to be freezing cold. In March, even though the days get warmer, when you go out in the morning on your game drive, it is still going to be very cold. And in April, I've sometimes seen people, even in April, wear a thin fleece in the morning game drives, but April onwards, the days begin to get really hot. So that's just to give you a rough idea of what the weather is going to be like. Also, those of you traveling to Delhi, those of you who are traveling on this trip in December and January will need to keep in mind that because of their geography and various other reasons, the Delhi and Agra areas tend to get quite smoggy at that time of the year. So do carry masks. You will really want them. So weather, of course, dictates our packing list. And while I told you about temperature, there is always a chance for unseasonal rains. So do carry rain gear. For those of you traveling in the cooler months from December through February, you will want to carry several layers of warm clothes. Typically, we have at least 3 or 4 layers on us. Our shirt, then a fleece, and then a down jacket on that, and sometimes a windproof jacket even over and above that. And of course, warm hats and gloves. And you will want sturdy walking shoes, at least for the winter months. In the summer months, tennis shoes or sandals will be fine. You will always want a hat because the game drives, you will be out in the sun and dust. Your pre-departure briefing booklet, your pre-departure booklet has a pretty exhaustive packing list, which I've pasted here. So you might want to go through that. It's on page number 14 of the booklet for this season. And do keep in mind that laundry is available at very reasonable, very affordable rates at all the camps we stay at. It's also available at the hotels, but I would not recommend using it at the hotels because we will be spending very short periods of time, typically just one night, at the city hotels. But at the lodges and camps in the national parks, we will have plenty of time, and the charges for laundry there are also far more reasonable than they are at the city hotels. Typically, laundry will have a 24-hour turnover time. So if you leave your laundry in your room tonight, as you come for dinner, it will be back in your room tomorrow evening when you get back from your game drive. So keep that in mind when you pack. You don't have to overpack because you have this option of laundry. Do have the NatHab buff that we give you. It will really help you manage the dust because it gets really dusty on the game drives. And of course, you will find details of how many pairs of shirts and how many pairs of trousers and how much warm underwear to carry and things like that in the pre-departure booklet. Camera equipment and binoculars are, of course, things that you would definitely want to carry on a trip like this. And regardless of camera, I would definitely say get a good pair of binoculars. I always say that the most important piece of kit in your camera bag are a good pair of binoculars because you need to see things first and then photograph them. So 8 by 42 or 10 by 42 binoculars work great. 10 by 42 binoculars, of course, are recommended for more seasoned hands because their narrower field of view can sometimes make it difficult to find things through them, but they work great for birds. 8 by 42 works great for mammals, for larger animals. If you're carrying cameras, of course, the best camera is the one that you have. But if you want to know how many cameras one would want to bring on a trip like this, then I would say then you should at least carry 2 mirrorless or DSLR camera bodies. And typically you would want to choose cameras that are good at low light and action performance, so high ISO and high frame rates. You should have at least a 300mm lens with you for wildlife photography, but having a longer focal length will also help with birds and faraway subjects. A short telephoto like a 70 to 200 will help when you have larger mammals like elephants and rhinos closer to you, or if you're lucky enough to have a tiger actually walking down towards you. And of course, you would also want to have wide angle and standard lenses for landscape and people pictures. We will provide you bean bags on request in the Safari Jeep, so don't bother carrying them. You might want to bring a monopod if you like using it. If you don't like using a monopod or are not used to one, don't bother getting one because it's going to be a hindrance at the airports. But tripods are an absolute no on a trip like this. If you really need one, get a monopod with you. Flash usage is not permitted anywhere, so don't bother getting them. And do carry plenty of extra batteries and memory cards, and ideally a hard drive and a laptop to download your pictures every day. You can find more information on page 43 of your pre-departure booklet. Flying in India, domestic flying can be tedious because of the amount of security checks that we undergo. The important things to keep in mind are this. Your checked baggage weight limit is 33 pounds. Your carry-on baggage weight limit is 15 pounds. And the airlines are pretty strict about these. Please ensure that you carry all electronic items, anything that can be classified as electronic, in your carry-on bag. That includes something like an electric shaver, for example. Do not put it in your checked bag. It will save you a lot of trouble at the airport. And similarly, anything that can be classified as a tool or a sharp object, including filers, hex wrenches, scissors, etc., anything like that should go in your checked bag. Anything electronic, including batteries and cameras, goes in your carry-on, and anything metallic, potentially sharp, potentially tool, goes in your checked bag. Please follow the instructions of your expedition leader absolutely strictly when it comes to packing information for flying. It is going to really save you a lot of trouble at the airports. Um, we fly through India all the time, and we are absolute pros at navigating Indian airports and bureaucracy. So please just follow whatever your expedition leader says about packing very, very strictly. And please use NatHab luggage tags. All of you will be provided with them. Please use those tags on your bags. A lot of people have other kinds of luggage tags that they like to have on their bags, but regardless, please put a NatHab luggage tag on your bags, because it makes it much easier for our local staff, be it at airports or the accommodations, to correctly identify your bags and quickly find them. Sometimes, if they don't see a NatHab luggage tag on the baggage carousel at the airport, for example, they might just ignore the bag, and that can cause unnecessary anxiety. So NatHab luggage tag is really important. And of course, you would want to bring soft-sided bags, and you might want to use packing cubes. Details on page 6 of the pre-departure booklet. I'll not go much into arrival information, but you will need to arrive in Delhi at least by 9 a.m. on day 1. Typically, you would want to arrive earlier to help with the jet lag, etc. You will be picked up you will be greeted by NatHab staff at the gates as you exit the aircraft. They will carry a placard with your name on it. Airport security rules prevent us from using a logo on it. So look for your name. They will assist you through immigration and customs, and walk you to your vehicle that's waiting outside at the airport. All our accommodations accept credit cards. ATMs are available not only in the big cities, but also within easy driving distance of all our camps. So you don't really need to carry cash. You might want to carry small change in Indian currency for local souvenirs purchases, Indians are increasingly moving away from cash and using something called UPI, where you pay with your phone basically. And even small vendors and small shops have started using those. So it is often difficult to find change. So in that case, you can always ask your expedition leader to step in and help, and he or she can pay through their phone, and then you can figure that out between you. From dinner on day 1, all meals and soft beverages at meals are included, and most tips are included. Please refer to page number 20 in the pre-departure booklet for more details on money matters. We shall be flying, driving, and traveling around a lot in safari jeeps. There are multiple flights and multiple overland transfers on this trip, and our city tours are going to be in vans similar to this one, like a typical Sprinter van in the US. Our overland journeys will be in these very comfortable Toyota Crista MUVs, where everybody gets a bucket seat and a window. Each vehicle will seat 3 people, 3 guests, and there will be a driver. Our game drives are going to be in open jeeps like this, we will be seating between 3 to 4 guests per jeep on the game drives. In addition, you will have the driver, a tracker or a local guide, as well as your expedition leader. When you don't have your expedition leader in your jeep, you will be driven by an English-speaking experienced naturalist. Our group is typically divided into 3 jeeps that go into, they might or might not go in the same zones in the park. And the expedition leader rotates between the jeeps through the course of the trip to give equal time to all guests. I know I'm slightly above the time limit, but I'll quickly go through the accommodations, and then I'll ask Brooke to open the house for questions. So yeah, here's the hotel we stay at in Delhi, the Taj Mahal Hotel. It is a landmark, an icon in Delhi. It's a beautiful hotel, a very comfortable 5-star hotel. At Bandhavgarh, we shall be staying at a very nice lodge called King's Lodge. They have about 20 cottages spread across a sprawling property that adjoins the national park, and we frequently have wildlife, including tigers and leopards, actually walking through the property. At Kanha, we stay at the very, very nice Singinawa Jungle Lodge. It's again, like King's Lodge, it is located right next to the national park. The grounds are sprawling and full of wildlife. Each of the lodges is unique and has its own character, its own cuisine. So do enjoy that at the different locations. After Kanha, we shall be spending a night at Calcutta to rest between our flights. And we shall be staying at the Taj New Town, close to the airport, which is very convenient and very comfortable. You can actually look up all of these properties on Google after the webinar and know more about them. At Kaziranga, our property is rustic yet comfortable and luxurious. It's the Diflu River Lodge, built in classic Assamese style, and it's named after a river that it is located along, which separates it from the park. It's a very narrow river called the Diflu, and you can see the park across the river, and sometimes you can even hear rhino. At Agra, our hotel is called Taj View. It is comfortable and convenient and located very close to the Taj Mahal, so that makes it easier for us to get to the Taj Mahal before sunrise on our first morning there, on our only morning there. And at the end of the trip, when you get to the airport, you shall be spending your time, your day rooms will be at this very nice hotel called Rosette House, which is very conveniently located just 10 minutes away from Terminal 3 of Delhi Airport in an area known as AeroCity. So we've chosen it for its proximity to the airport, and it is also a very comfortable, very luxurious, very nice hotel to finish your trip at and to refresh yourself for the long flight home. Meals are very, very accommodative. We have, even at the safari lodges, at the remote camps, we have an extensive selection of international cuisine and as well as Indian and continental food. And, our camp staff and the city hotels are, they're really good at taking care of even the most minute dietary restrictions. So if you've put your dietary restrictions in your trip booking details, you can rest assured that we will take care of them. And if there's anything that you might want emphasized, you can always tell your expedition leader, and he or she is going to make sure that your diet restrictions are met. Of course, we will be having a bunch of activities. The most, a number of which will be game drives. We will have one nature walk, we will have one night game drive, one boat safari, and several opportunities to interact with communities and explore their culture. And at Delhi, of course, we will have a city tour. But yeah, let me talk a little about the pace of this trip. A safari expedition can be exhilarating, it can be exciting, it can be amazing, but it is rarely ever relaxing. The this whole expedition is designed to maximize our wildlife watching opportunities. So we try and maximize the amount of time that we spend out and stay out looking for wild animals and birds. And that means that we have early mornings and spend a lot of times in game drives inside jeeps, typically about 8 hours a day in a safari jeep, morning and afternoon drives put together. We come back after the sun sets, and then it's time for dinner and bed again. So our days are going to be long. The travel days in between parks are also, you know, uh, long and tiring, but at the same time, the overland transfers, the overland journeys that we make from park to park also give fantastic opportunities to enjoy the countryside and appreciate, very, very beautiful landscapes that we drive through. Um, so this trip doesn't have much physical activity, yet at the same time, it is packed with other activity and is fairly hectic. But such is the nature of safari anywhere. The key animals that we'll be looking for, of course, begin with tigers. Uh, you know, tigers are going to be a key focus on this trip, even though this trip is meant to be an Indian wildlife trip. We will be spending more time for the animals that are less visible. So tigers will take up top priority there. We also have fair chances of seeing leopards, but don't expect leopard sightings to be, you know, very reliable. I typically tell my guests that on average, you would expect to see a tiger probably once in every 5 or 6 game drives, and a leopard probably every once in every 20 game drives. So that's how difficult it is to find and see leopards. They're absolutely chance. Um, Sloth bears are increasingly visible in the summers, but in the winters, we don't see them that much. In the summers, sloth bear sightings also are fairly rare. I would put them just above leopards in ease of sighting. And both our central Indian parks are excellent places to try and find wild dogs. But again, wild dog sightings are uh, probably as frequent or infrequent as leopard sightings are. We will have good chances of finding Asiatic elephants in the wild, both at Bandhavgarh and Kaziranga, as well as the world's largest wild bovine, the gaur, which are prolific in Kanha and Bandhavgarh. At Kaziranga, we will see the Asiatic wild buffalo, which has the largest span of horn among any wild bovids. And of course, we will have the great one-horned rhinoceros as our key focus species at Kaziranga. We will see several kinds of deer and maybe 2 or 3 species of antelope. And we will see multiple species of primates, of which the western hoolock gibbon and the capped langur of northeastern India will be star species that we'll be looking for. In central India, we'll be seeing the grey langur and rhesus macaques. And as I was mentioning, in the Brahmaputra, we will look for this elusive river dolphin, the Gangetic river dolphin, which is a blind dolphin. And we will have fantastic opportunities at birding. That sums up the most common or the most important species that we shall be looking for. Now, there's a seasonal variation between the trips. Winters are excellent for beautiful light, absolutely mesmerizing landscapes. Tigers in winter coat, they look totally different from tigers in summer coat. Tigers in winter coat look absolutely stunning, as if they've just come out of a salon or a spa. In the winter, tigers tend to be more mobile and more vocal, because that's also when a lot of courting and mating activity happens. In the winter, migratory birds are also to be seen. They're usually gone in the summer. And it is extremely pleasant weather to go on safari in. In summer, that is trips, say from February, March onwards, as it begins to warm up and water begins to dry out, tiger sightings definitely do become easier and increase. The forest bursts into spring colors, which make it very rewarding photographically, sort of making up for the loss of beautiful, golden, magical, misty winter light. And there's a lot of wildlife activity around these fruiting trees and shrinking bodies of water. So that sort of sums up the differences between the seasons for you. Once again, before I end this webinar and switch to the Q&A, I would ask you to please go through your pre-departure booklet in detail before you get on this trip. With that, it's over to you, Brooke, for this much over time webinar to tell me if there are any questions.
This is a big trip, Aditya, so it is perfectly fine that we went over. Yeah, everyone, if you do have any questions, I will go on for a little bit to ask some more pre-trip questions. If you are booked on this trip and we do not get to your question, as Aditya said, you could look at your PDB or you could reach out to the concierge team. They are more than happy to help. And if you are interested in booking this trip, please call our adventure specialist team. I did get a few questions asking about differences in times of year and all that kind of stuff. They are more than happy to help. So I just want to let you know that there are more resources outside of the webinar here, but I will ask you some pre-trip questions now, Aditya, since we do have some good ones here that you didn't address. Could you go a little bit further about the safety of the safari walk? I have a couple questions about that. Do you encounter big wildlife? Do you encounter tigers? Just to elaborate a little bit further on that.
You see, Brooke, tigers and leopards and almost all animals will go out of their way to avoid humans on foot, which is why it is so much easier to see them from a jeep. They are terrified of humans on foot. And when we go on these walking safaris, we are in a fairly large group. You know, the size of the group on this trip is up to 11 people. Plus, we have field staff. So there's over a dozen people walking. So any big cat within miles will try to, stay out of the way of a group of people this large. So it is absolutely safe in that sense. And we've got highly experienced field staff and guides escorting you. So there's absolutely nothing to worry about in that sense.
Perfect. Thank you so much on that. We have lots of packing questions. So if somebody has a CPAP, is that included in the 15-pound limit for the carry-on?
It is. A CPAP, even if it exceeds the weight, will still be allowed. The airlines are very accommodating on that. In fact, they're bound to allow that. And CPAPs, again, are absolutely, this is a very CPAP-friendly trip in that sense. You can use them at the lodges. They'll give you converters, blood converters, and, things like that. And we can even arrange distilled water for you if you require them. So the lodges, the hotels, the airlines, the airport security, they're all very accommodating of CPAP machines. Not a problem.
Great. And are wheeled duffel bags allowed?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. And what happens if somebody is over 33 pounds, their bag?
Well, you'll have to pay depending on how much you're extra. So, yeah.
Oh, great. That's easy enough. Next, we have lots of questions about bugs and insects. Are
Mhm.
these an issue during the trip? And if so, how is that managed? Do people bring a bug spray? And does it vary from the season?
It does vary from season. We typically advise you to carry bug spray. We also have bug spray available in your rooms everywhere. But I really haven't found bugs to be a problem anywhere except at Agra when you are waiting in line for the Taj Mahal gates to open. We do get some mosquitoes there. But in the parks, in the jungles, at the camps, bugs are almost never a problem. In the winters, it is so cold that there is very little bug activity. There are almost no mosquitoes. In March and April, the evenings, you might start to get some mosquitoes, but nothing that bug spray can't take care of.
Fantastic. And last question here, since we are well over time, but for Know Before You Goes, I'm perfectly fine going over for these webinars. Do you have any bird identification books that you like to use on this trip? We have multiple requests for knowing this.
Well, we all tend to use Grimet, Inkscape, and Inkscape the most because that's usually the most up to date. There are others as well. There's Collins. There are other bird books. There is Salim Ali, but the one by Grimet, Inkscape, and Inkscape is most recommended. But don't bother lugging a book around because we will provide you. I mean, every safari jeep will have a copy of Grimet, Inkscape, and Inkscape in them, and we also give you a book on the wildlife, a photographic guide to the wildlife of Central India, uh, which is also a good bird book. But of course, it does not cover the birds of northeastern India. But yeah, we'll always have a copy of Grimet, Inkscape, and Inkscape ready for you, so not to worry.
Okay, fantastic. With that, I'm going to conclude the Q&A for now. Again, everybody, please reach out to the team. I will say the phone number here in a little bit if you have additional questions. But Aditya, I'd love to turn it to you for any last closing comments.
Thank you, Brooke, and thank you to our wonderful audience. I hope you found this Know Before You Go webinar useful. I apologize for going over the time and not being able to answer some questions. I will request Brooke to email me any unanswered questions, and I promise I'm going to write back with all the answers. So, yeah, I hope it was useful, and I request you once again, yet again, to please go through the pre-departure booklet. It is a really useful piece of literature that if you're coming on this trip this year or in 2026, you will really want. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you on Safari.
Yes, Aditya, thank you for this fantastic detailed presentation. I feel ready for the trip, and I'm not even going. I hope everybody feels the same. And I would like to thank everybody who tuned in. If you're interested in information on how you can travel with NetHab, give us a call at 800-543-8917 or send us an email at info@nethab.com. Our adventure specialists are more than happy to help you. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nethab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and the replay will be available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody.